I never thought that a simple, overheard phone call would be the thing to break everything I believed about my family. It started with laughter, soft at first, like distant thunder. I was sitting at my kitchen table, swirling a spoon in my chamomile tea, when I realized the call hadn't fully disconnected. And then I heard his voice. Brandon's voice. My son. She's too stupid to realize what's really going on. The air seemed to freeze around me. My spoon clinked against the porcelain cup, suddenly jarring in the quiet room. The scent of lavender from the candle Samantha gave me last Christmas floated gently, absurdly peaceful, as if the room didn't understand what had just happened. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the phone. The line was still open. Brandon laughed again, and Samantha joined in. "Seriously," she said, giggling. "She practically handed it all to us. She thinks she's helping. God, what an idiot!" Brandon chuckled. "Let her believe that. As long as she keeps signing what we need, who cares what she thinks?" I didn't cry, not then, not yet. Instead, I placed the phone down as gently as I could. My fingers felt like they were made of glass, fragile, hollow, on the verge of breaking. The words echoed in my head, louder than any scream. I had raised him alone after his father passed. I had carried the weight of our little family for decades. And now the man I believed I had raised right was laughing behind my back, mocking me. The teacup tipped over in slow motion. Chamomile spilled across the marble countertop and dripped onto the rug I had hand-stitched in my 50s. I sat there staring at the mess, not just of the tea, but of the illusion I had been living in. Then I whispered to myself, evenly, clearly, "Not anymore." That morning, just a few hours before I overheard the truth, I had felt nothing but pride. I had stood at the bank, smiling as the teller printed the final mortgage receipt. Brandon and Samantha's house officially paid off. No more interest, no more monthly strain. It was my gift to them, my legacy. The money came from my husband's life insurance, the careful investments he left behind, and the savings I had quietly built over the years. Every dollar wired was a memory, a sacrifice, a promise I thought I was fulfilling. The drive to their house was quiet. My heart was full. I imagined Brandon's face lighting up as I handed him the confirmation. I pictured Samantha hugging me, maybe even tearing up, and I thought of my grandson, Matthew, toddling barefoot across the living room floor, safe, happy, surrounded by the stability I had helped create. They had been so persuasive last month. "It's not just about us, Mom," Brandon had said, resting his hand on mine across my kitchen table. "It's for the baby. This house will be his one day." Samantha had smiled sweetly, her eyes misty. "You've done so much for us already. But this would change everything. You'd still be a co-owner, of course. Your name's on the title. You're a part of this." They made it sound like I belonged, like I was building something with them. So I had nodded. I swallowed the quiet unease that rose inside me. My late husband, Robert, would have asked more questions. He always read the fine print, but me. I wanted to trust. I needed to feel close to them. So I said yes. When I pulled into their driveway that morning, the yard looked like something out of a magazine. Fresh flowers, clean porch, a tiny blue swing hanging from the oak tree. Robert's voice echoed in my head, half amused, half concerned. "You're spoiling them, Dorothy. Let them stand on their own." But I brushed it off. This was love, wasn't it? The first time they asked for help, it sounded like a favor wrapped in a factor. "We're a team, Mom," Brandon had said. "Always have been. We just need a small loan to bridge the down payment. Nothing too complicated. And you'll be listed as a co-owner, of course." Samantha brought me cinnamon rolls that day. Still warm, she hugged me tightly and said, "We're so lucky to have you. I don't know what we'd do without your support." It felt good, needed, seen. But it didn't stop there. The second time, they wanted to refinance, just to renovate the nursery, Samantha said, scrolling through pastel color palettes and forest animal decals on her phone. Soft yellows, maybe a mural of little foxes. Matthew deserves a peaceful space to grow. And I agreed. I always agreed. Then came Brandon's business idea. He sat across from me, animated, flipping through sleek brochures and charts. "It's solid, Mom. You wouldn't believe the projected margins. It's all short-term. Once it takes off, we all benefit." He used words like venture, partnership, equity growth. Words that felt too fast, too big for my comfort. But I didn't want to seem old-fashioned. I didn't want him to think I didn't believe in him. My husband's voice stirred in the back of my mind, quiet but firm. "Slow down, Dorothy. never sign what you don't understand. But I brushed it aside. Brandon wasn't like the stories on the news, those sad tales of children draining their parents' accounts and disappearing. My son wasn't like that. He was good. He was family. So I signed again and again. Every time I handed over more than my signature, I gave away trust, permission, leverage. Eventually, Brandon brought me the power of attorney documents. It's just a formality, Mom. You trust me, don't you? This way, I can handle the paperwork for you. You won't have to worry about all the red tape anymore. And honestly, I didn't want to worry. At 72, squinting through legal jargon was exhausting. So I nodded. Samantha kissed my cheek. You're the heart of this family, she whispered. Looking back now, I can see it clearly. Every smile, every compliment, every dinner invitation, it was all part of a long, careful performance. Not just to earn my love, but to access everything it came with. After the call ended, after I finally pressed the button they'd forgotten, I just sat there. No sobbing, no outburst. Only silence. The house around me, once a haven, now felt like a stranger's space. The ticking of the kitchen clock, once comforting, now sounded like a countdown. I stood slowly and turned off the kettle that had long since begun to scream. I placed the teacup upright again, though its contents were now lost in the fibers of the rug below. The candle on the windowsill still flickered lavender and eucalyptus, Samantha's Christmas gift. I stared at it for a long moment. The flame was small, calm, controlled. I matched its stillness. This was my home, my money, my name on every document, and somehow I had let it all be used like a blank check with my love as the currency. I rested both hands on the counter, grounding myself. Then, steady and low, I spoke aloud just for me to hear. Not anymore? Not out of bitterness, not yet out of revenge, just clarity. Because somewhere between all the paperwork and the cinnamon rolls, I had lost my footing. I had let grief cloud my judgment. After Robert passed, I was desperate to feel needed. 42 years of marriage leaves a silence behind that echoes through every empty hallway. I had wanted to matter to someone again, and they knew that. They used it. But now the air had shifted. I could feel it deep inside, beneath the ache, beneath the shame, a sharp edge of something new. Resolve. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew this much. I would not be quiet anymore. The words Samantha had used months ago echoed in my head. Transparent, she had said with a smile, handing me the new tablet. Now everything's linked, so you don't have to worry. You can see it all, total transparency. Back then, I didn't look. I didn't think I needed to. I trusted them. The apps were just icons on a home screen I never tapped. But now, I tapped. The financial folder opened smoothly, with neat categories and color-coded tabs. It looked harmless, organized even. The first few files were expected: mortgage records, tax receipts, account summaries. Then I saw it. A business account I didn't recognize with my name attached. I opened the file. The balance was large, but it wasn't the number that made my stomach knot. It was a transaction history: wire transfers, international withdrawals, money moving into accounts under Brandon's name. Another folder. Investment package joint. My name was listed again, this time as the primary guarantor. 3 more folders followed. High-risk brokerage accounts, cryptocurrency wallets, leveraged loans against assets I didn't even know were being used. It was all under my identity. And I had signed every access point. The power of attorney, the joint accounts, the refinances. They had used my pristine credit score like armor, shielding risky ventures, business moves, personal indulgences, all without telling me. Every folder I opened felt like peeling back another layer of infection I never knew was there. Quiet, hidden, growing. I sat in the kitchen, the tablet on my lap, my hands icy and still. Even the cat, Willow, paused at the edge of the room, as if sensing the shift in the air. This wasn't just betrayal. It was exploitation. They hadn't just lied to me. They had built a fortress of control using my foundation. I was the silent figure propping up their empire, and I hadn't even known. If anything failed, if anything collapsed, I would be the name they pointed to. My eyes scanned the screen, then closed slowly. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't cried. But something deep inside me had turned. The trust was dead, and what remained was sharp, focused, and ready. If they thought I was too old, too kind, too naive to notice, then they had misunderstood me for the very last time. I didn't call anyone. Not Brandon. Not Samantha. Not even my oldest friend Margaret, who I usually spoke to every Sunday afternoon. Instead, I got to work. I opened the drawer to Robert's old desk, something I hadn't done in years. Inside were stacks of documents, organized the way only he could manage. Folders labeled with dates, account numbers, clipped neatly. It smelled faintly of paper and dust and something older, something dependable. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. Every account I had seen, every transaction I didn't recognize, every folder in that cloud drive with my name attached. Then I turned on the printer. I printed everything, dozens of pages, bank transfers, brokerage account ledgers, signed authorizations I didn't remember ever approving. I stacked them methodically on the dining table, each paper heavy with evidence. Willow jumped up next to the stack and curled into a ball like a little sentry on guard duty. "Good girl," I whispered. "We've got some work to do." I created digital copies, one on a flash drive, another saved to an encrypted folder on my personal laptop. I even backed up the folder in a small external drive Robert once used for our vacation photos. Not because I was paranoid. Because I was done being blind. With everything gathered, I sat back and reviewed it, all the structure of it, the quiet sophistication of how they built this web around me. This wasn't amateur. This was planned. And I had been their silent partner, giving them permission, giving them room to maneuver, all under the illusion of love and gratitude. I wrote a new list on a fresh page. Revoke power of attorney. Freeze joint credit lines. Contact financial advisor. Update will and estate. Secure legal counsel. There was no panic in my chest, no rush of adrenaline, just a quiet certainty. I had been generous. I had been trusting. But I had never been stupid. And now the part of me that Robert had always said was quiet but steel had come to the surface. They had built this house of cards on the assumption I'd never look behind the curtain. Well, I had looked, and I wasn't going to stop there. The next day, I called Brandon. My voice was light, casual, familiar. "Sweetheart," I said, "I'd love to hear more about that business opportunity you mentioned last week. Why don't we sit down and go over it in person?" He hesitated for only a second. "Of course, Mom. That's a great idea." We agreed to meet at a cafe. Samantha liked one of those trendy spots with mismatched chairs and soft jazz humming from the ceiling speakers. She always called it rustic chic. I arrived 20 minutes early, ordered a pot of Earl Grey, and chose a table in the far corner, my back to the wall, full view of the entrance. And my small recording device carefully positioned inside my purse, angled toward the table. Brandon arrived right on time. He smiled, kissed my cheek, and sat across from me like nothing had changed. "You look great," he said. "So do you," I replied, returning the smile. "How's the baby?" He gave me a quick update, threw in a few sweet anecdotes, and then just as I expected, his tone shifted. "Actually, Mom, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about." Here it came. "There's this incredible investment window," he said, leaning in slightly. "They fast-tracked the timeline, and I just need a little more liquidity to finalize my position." "How much?" He glanced down as if calculating. 200,000. Short-term. Covered by our existing assets. Barely even a favor, really. I kept my expression warm. "You've already prepared the paperwork, haven't you?" He grinned. "You know me. Always ahead of the curve. It's all ready just in case you're comfortable moving forward. And Samantha's on board with this too." "Of course, we both are." There it was again, the unified front, the emotional pressure dressed as partnership. I sipped my tea. "Let me review everything first. You know I like to be thorough." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, but he recovered quickly. "Absolutely, Mom. Take your time." We stood, hugged goodbye. He didn't notice how tightly I held my purse. Inside, the recorder had captured every word. As I walked to my car, I whispered to myself, "Thank you, Brandon. You just gave me exactly what I needed." The following morning, I dressed like I was heading out for groceries, slacks, a light sweater, nothing unusual. But every step I took was deliberate. My first stop was the office of Monica Whitaker, a financial attorney recommended by my advisor. She was in her late 50s, composed with the kind of stillness that makes you lean in when she speaks. "Walk me through everything," she said, flipping open a yellow legal pad. "Leave nothing out." And I didn't. The loans, the refinanced mortgage, the business accounts, the power of attorney, and finally the cafe recording. She listened without interrupting, her pen barely moving. When I finished, she leaned back, nodding once. "They've left a paper trail," she said, her tone calm but crisp. "This is not just unethical. This is actionable. If you're ready to move forward, we can begin today." I didn't hesitate. "Start now." Over the next hour, we drafted the paperwork. Immediate revocation of power of attorney. Freeze on all joint credit lines. Legal notices to financial institutions. An updated estate plan, stripping Brandon and Samantha of any future claim. "You may face backlash," Monica warned gently. "Emotional manipulation, guilt, even threats." "I've been preparing for that," I said, "my whole life without realizing it." She gave me a nod of quiet respect. Before I left, she added, "Once this is filed, they'll have no legal standing over your assets. And if they retaliate, we'll be ready." I signed each document with a steady hand, no tremble, no fear. Just clarity. By the time I returned home, the first notices were already being processed. I placed the folder inside my safe, next to Robert's old will and our wedding photos. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was protecting them. I was protecting myself. It didn't take long for the first crack to appear. 2 nights later, Brandon and Samantha were out celebrating. Some business milestone I assumed may be a new investor or another one of Brandon's deals dressed up as brilliance. I imagined the scene clearly: candlelit table, expensive wine, Samantha's curated smile across the table, both of them basking in their imagined success. Then the check arrived. Brandon's first card was declined. He probably chuckled at first. "Must be a glitch," he'd say. "Try it again." The second card? Also declined. That's when the panic would set in, not the loud kind. The quiet, choking kind that tightens shoulders and sharpens glances across a restaurant table. Silent calculations, dread dressed as confusion. Back at home, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Brandon's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. A few minutes later, a voicemail from Samantha followed, her tone tighter, brittle around the edges. "Dorothy, can you please call us? Something's going on with the accounts. We think there's a mistake. Maybe the bank made an error. We just need to talk. Please." I played the message once, then archived it into the same secure folder where I'd saved every screenshot, document, and recording. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt confirmation. They had no idea yet what had been set in motion. They were still treating this like a glitch, like a minor inconvenience they could smooth over with enough charm and spin. But the ground beneath them wasn't cracking. It was shifting. And I was no longer the woman they thought would do nothing but listen, nod, and agree. I didn't need to call them back, because the silence was starting to speak for me. The knock on my front door came just after 8 p.m. 3 sharp, impatient raps. I was already prepared. I checked the small voice recorder hidden behind the hallway vase it was running. When I opened the door, Brandon stood there, jaw tight, his eyes flashing with panic. Samantha hovered behind him, arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin, nervous line. "We need to talk," he said, almost shaking. I stepped aside calmly. "Of course, sweetheart. Come in." They walked into the living room and immediately froze. Monica Whitaker was already seated, her briefcase beside her, her presence steady and unmoved. Brandon's voice cracked. "Who is this?" "My attorney," I said evenly. "She's helping me with some overdue estate adjustments." "Estate adjustments," he scoffed. "Mom, what is going on? You froze our accounts. You pulled the mortgage. We're being denied access to everything." I sat down, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Please sit." He didn't. "You're ruining everything we've built," Brandon snapped. "We're a team." "No," I said softly. "You built it on me, without my consent, without respect. That's not a team. That's theft." Samantha finally spoke, her voice trembling. "We were doing this for Matthew, for the family." "For years I believed that," I replied, turning my gaze to her. "But I see now you didn't see me as family. You saw me as funding." Brandon's face turned red. You're destroying your own son. No, I said, standing slowly. I'm protecting myself, something you clearly never intended to do. Monica opened her briefcase and slid a folder across the coffee table. These are the documents detailing every unauthorized transaction you initiated under your mother's name, she said. They've already been submitted to the appropriate authorities. Brandon didn't speak. Samantha reached for his arm. He pulled away. You'll regret this, he whispered. But I didn't flinch. Because regret only comes when you've made the wrong choice. And I had finally made the right one. The door shut behind them with a dull finality. For a long moment I stood still in the quiet, not shaken, just still. Monica packed her briefcase without a word, then turned to me. They may try to reach out again, she said. But legally, they're blocked from any access moving forward. I nodded. She paused at the door. Most people don't fight back until it's too late. You didn't just reclaim your assets, Dorothy. You reclaimed your voice. After she left, I walked to the fireplace and looked at the old family photo still sitting on the mantel. Brandon as a boy, Samantha smiling, me in the center, holding Matthew in my lap. I picked it up. Not in anger, just in clarity. I opened Robert's old desk drawer, placed the photo inside, and closed it gently. Outside, the porch light glowed against the darkening sky. It used to mean something more, that soft light I left on, hoping Brandon would drop by for dinner, for a chat, for any kind of warmth. Now it was just a light. And that was enough. I sat at the kitchen table with a fresh cup of tea. Willow curled at my feet, her breathing slow, steady, certain, like mine. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. What they took from me wasn't just money. It was the assumption that I would never push back, that I would keep choosing silence in the name of love. But love without respect is not love. It's control. It's theft. And I've reclaimed every piece they counted on me to give away. If you've ever felt used by the people closest to you, let this story remind you, quiet does not mean weak. Sometimes the loudest answer is the one you never give them. Sometimes the silence is the storm. Like, share and leave a comment below, especially if you've ever had to choose yourself, even when it hurt.